right, great. The next speaker is someone that I met a long time ago when I was part of his defense fund, and I'm really proud to bring him up on stage. Stephen Funk. He came out against the Iraq War 10 years ago. Has it really been 10 years? Oh my God, am I 10 years old? Came out against the Iraq War 10 years ago as the first public conscientious objector. Yeah! For his public refusal, he was court-martialed, fined, demoted, sentenced to 6 months, and given a bad conduct discharge. He founded Iraq Veterans Against the War, Courage to Resist, and his own nonprofit, Veteran Artists, which uses art in the healing and reintegration process of veterans. Stephen Funk!
Thank you, Tommy. I came here because, like a lot of people, I'm Bradley Manning. Whoever put the sign here, I'm Bradley Manning. Like Bradley Manning, I was gay and in the military, and like Bradley Manning, I was against the war, and like Bradley Manning, I was court-martialed. And like Bradley Manning, it's so hard to look at Bradley Manning, he's so cute.
Will you talk louder, Steve?
Anyways, I'm just here to read the statement by the local chapter of IVW, Iraq Veterans Against the War.
Louder!
The beginnings of San Francisco's gay liberation movement were deeply tied with mass mobilizations against the Vietnam War, alongside thousands of GI resistors like Bradley Manning. Iraq Veterans Against the War, San Francisco is disappointed that the board of SF Pride has betrayed the strong anti-war roots of San Francisco's LGBT community by deciding to unseat Bradley Manning as 2013 Grand Marshal and to further publicly malign Manning. SF Pride has broken with its own tradition of appointing controversial community leaders and freedom fighters as Grand Marshals, and has instead capitulated to the interests of its funders and lowest common denominator politics by making the profoundly undemocratic decision to reverse Manning's election. SF Pride's recent statement also makes several false assertions about the nature and effects of Manning's actions. As veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, both peers and allies, we strongly object to the hyperbolic assertion made by Lisa Williams, president of the SF Pride's board of directors, that Manning's election as Grand Marshal is an insult to everyone, gay and straight, who has ever served in the military of this country. Well, she never talked to me. I don't know, did any of you get a phone call? I didn't. Or that his actions would place in harm's way the lives of our men and women in uniform. Indeed, your service members are placed in harm's way, not by whistleblowers and human rights defenders, but by the policies carried out by the Bush and Obama administrations in Iraq and Afghanistan, and by the broken veteran care system we return to. As veterans, we have witnessed the effects of U.S. occupations on civilian populations in Iraq and Afghanistan. As violence racks communities throughout Iraq this month, we note with sadness that today's Iraq is less safe for gay men, as well as women of all sexual orientations, than it was a decade ago when the U.S. invaded. Like us, Manning saw the effects of years of U.S. occupation in Iraq. POC Manning has been homophobically maligned by the mainstream press as having impulsively leaked documents in an attempt to get back at the Army following relentless homophobic harassment. In fact, Manning's statements reveal an extremely sophisticated analysis of military racism and U.S. military role in undermining democracy in Iraq and around the globe. If Manning is guilty of releasing wires to WikiLeaks, then Manning is guilty of actions that have played a role in catalyzing some of the largest democratic uprisings in recent history. Meanwhile, these crimes pale in comparison to the laundry list of unethical and illegal activities already listed, perpetuated by a number of SF Pride funders, including Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and AT&T. Bradley Manning is currently languishing in a military prison in conditions that the UN and Amnesty International have described as torturous. After nearly 3 years, Manning is facing a trial without basic tenets of due process. Bradley Manning has risked a great deal on account of the belief that information matters, that we, as a public, would do something if we knew the truth about actions being taken by the U.S. government. Now it is up to us to prove Manning right. Publicly maligning Manning 1 month before what could be the biggest court-martial proceeding our country has ever seen has broad negative implications for the future of truth-telling from within the military ranks, and accordingly for the U.S. population to be informed on the actions of our nation. We would like to respectfully call on members of the wider LGBT community to demand Bradley Manning's reinstatement as 2013 San Francisco Pride Grand Marshal, to take this time for new commitments to anti-war politics and solidarity with political prisoners, and to visibly support Bradley Manning throughout the ensuing court-martial as well as the upcoming Pride season. Sincerely, San Francisco chapter of Iraq Veterans Against the War and Civilian Soldier Alliance. Thank you.
U.S. Navy vet from 1968 to 72, Veterans for Peace member, president of the Bay Area's Veterans for Peace, and former member of the GA Rights Hotline. Let's hear it for Bill.
Hello, everybody. I wanted to share a few of my feelings about Bradley. I also know what it's like to work with a top secret clearance. When I first heard what he did, I tried to imagine the courage, the intensity that was going on inside him. When he got up out of that desk that day with a little disc, and on that disc it had several 100,000 communiques. When he walked out the door, he knew what he was doing. He knew they were going to be after him. He knew they were just trying to find out who it was, and not only the United States intelligence agencies would be looking for him. There was going to be embarrassment to spread all around the world. There were many more that would be looking for him. How he slept at night, how he wondered what it was like when they would be coming through the door, I couldn't imagine it. He knew if they caught him or when they caught him it was going to be a hard time. They were going to make an example out of him to make sure that this was never done again. We're finding out now, we hope they've done so far. The revelations were astounding. To most of us, we know we're not really surprised by them. But to see them in print on public record, to be studied, despite the squash on them had by all our corporate media and media throughout the world, they'll be studied for eternity. Bradley's interviewed one time. He was asked if he regretted anything about all this, and he said the only regret that he would have if people stopped reading the documents, if people gave up interest not in him but in the material that he released. So when I heard the other day the statement about blood on military people and things like that was kind of outrageous, and I said most of the people I know that have been in that experience, I think they ought to think a little bit more about blood upstairs. And I would suggest to them to go over to Lafayette, and on the hillside of Lafayette as you come out of the Caldecott Tunnel, there's a symbolic cemetery with thousands of headstones on it to commemorate all the war dead, the dead from all sides, children, the maimed, the disappeared, displaced. If they go over there and read those, see those people, walk through, read the names on the list, come back and read the documents that Bradley Manning made public to the world, they may have a totally different picture on what blood is all about. So, we ask that Bradley being reinstated because Pride Week is coming, the Pride Parade is coming, and we're proud of Bradley Manning. Yeah!